Welcome to this special episode of CP Newswatch. I'm Kathleen Harris, Ottawa Bureau Chief at the Canadian Press. We're in the final days of a rough and tumble election campaign in the United States. 2 assassination attempts on former President Donald Trump. President Joe Biden removed himself as Democratic nominee after a disastrous debate performance. And VP Kamala Harris rising to the top of the ticket after his departure. There's been controversy, anger, and lots of viral moments, memes, and political ads. But through these final weeks, one thing hasn't changed, and that's that American voters are deeply divided. Polling also shows Republicans and Democrats neck and neck in nearly every battleground state. Canadian Press Washington correspondent Kelly Malone is our lead reporter on this file. We've been chatting every week leading up to the U.S. election for this special podcast. She's brought us stories from the road and explained the key issues that matter most to Canadians. This week, we'll break down the final week of the campaign, what parties have been selling, and whether voters are buying it. This is part 4 of 4. She joins us now from Milwaukee. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me back.
You've probably been racking up a lot of travel points, Kelly, in the last few months, going to some of these crucial battleground states ahead of the election. This last week, you were in D.C. and Wisconsin for rallies, talking to volunteers and voters. What were you hearing?
Most polling in this final week continues to show a dead heat. A new Washington Post poll from Michigan, that's one of the key battleground states, found likely voters split 47% for Harris and 46% for Trump. That's within the poll's margin of error. Canadians watching are probably shaking their heads at how it can be this divided this few days out. And trust me, the Americans I'm talking to, they're shaking their heads too. So I went to a Kamala Harris rally in DC earlier this week, and it was huge. The Harris campaign says there were around 75,000 people there. And since this is the vibe check day, the vibe was excitement, exhilaration, and honestly, there was also a lot of anxiety. I spoke with 26-year-old John Myron and asked how he was feeling. He definitely let out a deep sigh and was like, I'm cautiously optimistic. But he said he remembers 2016 and how everyone thought Hillary Clinton was going to win against Trump. And the last time there was a big rally at that spot in DC, it was the January 6th Capitol Hill attack.
I mean, I think the energy here today so far is like the last time a large crowd gathered here, we know what happened. And it was a horrific day for our country and a horrific day in the history of America. So feeling the energy here compared to the energy then, which was anger, defiance, trying to overthrow a democratically elected presidency, like seeing like this energy here, it's calm, it's joyful, people are happy, people are saying hello. So I think that's the energy that's leading me to some optimism and hopeful nature that we're not going to turn back the clock. I think people are also excited about that overall.
So he was actually with another John at the rally, and both were wearing the quintessential camo Harris Waltz hats with the bright orange writing that I'm seeing at all of her rallies. 28-year-old John Connolly says he was feeling much closer to optimism. He says not everyone is out there yelling their support, going to rallies, being public, going on social media, but everyone he knows actually intends to vote.
Yeah, I think the one difference is, compared to the last election, is I think the stakes for individuals are a lot more higher this time around. I know all of my women friends, and not of any age, are, I think, much more viscerally aware of what's on the stakes in this election compared to other years. So they may not show it in showing up to rallies or knocking doors, but I don't know a person that's not voting because of the issues like reproductive rights or our democracy and the threat that Trump poses to our country.
DC is obviously the epicenter of politics in the United States, so I figured it'd be a good idea to head to Wisconsin. That's a state both Republicans and Democrats want to win if they're going to get the victory. This state has been inundated with political ads. Eating breakfast this morning, it really was ad after ad after ad. Now, when we tape this, it's Friday afternoon. I haven't yet gone to a Trump rally that's scheduled in Milwaukee, but I have been talking to Republicans that I've met. And obviously, the Republican National Convention was held here earlier this summer. And I'm hearing less hesitation from Trump supporters. There's still some concern about the future of America, but they're feeling good about their guy. So the vibe check on Trump rallies is they're really just like a huge party. When I was here earlier this campaign, I spoke with Donna Haas. The 65-year-old lives in West Bend, and she has a really different take on the vibes. It reflects a lot more of the talking points and conspiracy theories that have been coming from Trump, his running mate Vance, and some of the other Republicans that have been speaking throughout this campaign.
Well, so far West Bend has been pretty calm, but the rest of the country is pretty crime-ridden. I heard we do have a family of immigrants living up on the other side of 33 that kind of took over the neighborhood. I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it. I'm worried as hell.
So the vibe check on Trump supporters. At rallies, they feel excited, and most of them talk about how they're pretty sure that Trump is going to win. But they also reflect some of the same views that Donna spoke about.
Okay, so a lot of excitement out there, but a lot of fear as well from both parties. What will people be watching for on election day to see if it's Trump or Harris that wins the day?
So a lot of people, myself included, aren't expecting an immediate decision on election night. I would love that, trust me. But there's still a lot of mail-in ballots and other things that can come up that can delay a decision. Most eyes will be looking at 7 states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Harris and Trump have both spent a lot of time in these states over the whole campaign, but especially in these last few days. Actually, both are having rallies tonight in Milwaukee. So these states are important for their electoral college votes. The electoral college's 538 votes decide the president. And each state gets a certain number based on how many seats they have in the House of Representatives, plus their 2 senators. Whoever achieves 270 electoral college votes gets the presidency. And these 7 states that I just talked about, well, their electoral college votes are probably the most likely to be in play. Pennsylvania's electoral college votes are likely the most important for both parties right now. Trump's 2016 Pennsylvania win was integral for his path to victory, and then it narrowly swung back to Biden in 2020. Voting registration shows Republicans still have a pretty hardy hold on many rural areas of the state, and Democrats are holding strong in big cities like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and their surrounding suburbs. Whoever takes Pennsylvania will only need likely 2 other battleground states to get enough of those electoral college votes for the presidency. The other Midwest states at play are Wisconsin and Michigan, and they also went Trump in 2016 and then back to Biden in 2020. Michigan is obviously important because of its massive trade relationship with Canada. And Georgia's 16 electoral college votes went Republican for decades. But in 2020, Biden took the state in a narrow victory. And that one came with all those conspiracy theories over mail-in ballots. That controversy is still impacting the state. Earlier this summer, courts denied the Georgia Election Board's attempt to change rules requiring all ballots be counted by hand. So if experts I spoke with, they say if Democrats can mobilize the state's large Black and growing Latino and Latina population, Harris could repeat Biden's victory. But some polls have shown Trump gaining support among Black men, pulling away Democrat support in places like Atlanta's suburbs. There are also similar demographic concerns for Democrats in North Carolina. Its 16 electoral votes haven't swung Democrats since former President Barack Obama in 2008. But all the other elections were won by really small margins, so it's still considered at play. There'll also be a showdown in the Sunbelt states of Arizona and Nevada. And in both of those states, one county is home to most of the voting population. So in 2020, 2/3 of Nevada votes came from Clark. That's where Las Vegas is located. Biden actually lost all 14 other counties, but his vote margin win in Clark brought the statewide victory. Across the swing states, experts say Republicans will win if Trump can grow the rural vote, while also making gains among those traditional Democrats like the Black men and Latinos. Democrats will likely stay in the White House if Harris can get people who live in cities and suburbs to the polls at high enough numbers to offset those Republicans' footings in rural areas. What's also important is what's happening down ballot. 34 of the 100 members of the U.S. Senate are up for election, seeking 6-year terms, and voters in each of the nation's 435 congressional districts will choose their member for the House of Representatives. The party that wins a majority of Senate or of House seats will control the respective chamber. And that really controls a lot of whatever president is elected, what they can do.
So much at stake with this election in the US. When you think back at your travels during the campaign, what sticks with you? What sticks most in your mind about what you've heard and seen on the ground?
Yeah, so I was actually at a large Harris rally in Madison, Wisconsin earlier this week. It was kind of like a concert, especially for someone from my generation, because it was the Mumford and Sons and members of National were performing. There was a couple other artists, but I didn't know them, and that was when I was really feeling my age around the university students. But what actually stood out with me was speaking to people before the rally. There was a lot of people who were attending the rally who'd actually spent the whole week door knocking for the Democrats throughout the states. So I asked them, what's it like when you're going to the doors? And they said, absolutely. They know there's a lot of polarization online and in talking points and hearing from the candidates. But the volunteers also said, when they went to the doors, whether or not people agreed with them, everyone seemed really excited to vote. So here's two of those volunteers.
We just spent the first half of the day in suburban Milwaukee knocking some doors, and we had a great day. Like, we talked to a lot of engaged voters, a lot of people who are planning to vote in the next few days. So, we feel good because we were out of the doors. It's a lot harder when we're home, just doom scrolling. It's going to obviously be tight, but we're just both, I think, of the mindset of the inputs matter at this point. Every single voter, especially here, matters. And so we're out knocking doors today and will be all weekend because we're going to create the vibe.
What do you hear from people? How are they feeling? People talk about this being a polarized election.
You hear that, but a lot of the folks that we're talking to are really excited about voting. Even there's a new energy, it feels, on the doors that I have never seen before. People are thanking us for our work. They recognize the stakes of the election. They're really informed, all the way from Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to state reps to constitutional amendments in a way that is pretty uncommon. So I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really excited. I think, like Karen said, the work that we're doing now matters. Every door you knock, every phone call you make, every voter you talk to makes a difference.
So we're talking about this being a vibe check day for our conversation. And that was kind of a vibe check for myself. Everything seems really heightened. Everything feels at stake, even in reporting. So that's a really good vibe check as a reporter.
Well, thanks for all the great reporting that you've done on this, Kelly. Thanks for doing these special episodes, and have fun on the final days of the campaign. I'm Kathleen Harris, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Canadian Press.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. For more of today's top stories, visit thecanadianpressnews.ca.